excellent.
What if I told you that today your company, with a little intentionality, could boost its revenue and you didn't have to produce a new product, you didn't have to sell a new product, you didn't have to service a new product? What if you didn't even need a viral marketing campaign, fresh branding, more employees, or even new technology in order to do it? What if the blueprint to achieve this is happening right in front of us today? And believe it or not, it's happening in front of us from our federal government. See, President Trump and Elon Musk created this very controversial Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and its goal was to do simply one thing. It was to go throughout the government, through every department, line by line, and eliminate waste and save the taxpayer dollars. Now, I know there are many different feelings about this, and there are lots of discussions about this. This is a hot topic today, and I know that you have your own opinions as well. But it's hard to argue with results. See, they have already saved the government, taxpayer dollars, $55 billion. That is billion dollars with a B, and they just got started. And here's the encouraging part, is that it wasn't hard to do. They just simply cut unnecessary programs, they renegotiated contracts, and they trimmed the fat on government spending. They went through line by line and simply found waste. Now, before you disconnect today, before you turn off the podcast, before you start watching, let me put you at ease. I'm not talking about politics here. Because regardless if you agree with their methods, if you voted for a certain party or you didn't, that's not our topic today. The core idea from our conversation today is streamlining and cutting waste. That this is something that every organization can learn from. As we watch what they're doing, trimming line by line and saving money, every organization can learn from what's happening because it's smart. It's just common sense. It is good business management. And I want to ask you this. If you were to run a DOGE-style audit in your company or your organization, or even in your personal finances, how much waste would you find? So here's what I want to challenge you in today. I want you to hang with me because throughout this episode, we're going to talk about how you can go DOGE in your organization or in your life in order to cut waste, in order to save money, and in order to operate at max capacity. So welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. If this brings value to your life, will you do me a favor? Will you like, subscribe, and share this with others? It would also be amazing if you would leave a review wherever you listen, because this helps me add as much value to as many people as possible. Did you know on average that U.S. businesses waste up to 30% of their operating budget on inefficiencies? That simply means that 30% of your hard-earned money that you have worked for, that you have planned for, that you have strategized over, all the work that you've put into it, 30% of that income is just slipping through the cracks, and you probably don't even realize it's happening. And if you do realize it, you probably don't even know why. So the question is, how do we reduce the waste that's in our organization? So if I've piqued your interest, I want to help you identify just some key areas of your organization where you need to be looking for waste. There are 4 of the biggest areas that most businesses lose money without even realizing it. So let's talk about these 4. The first one is just financial waste, aka where did all of my money go? See, financial waste is not uncommon in any of our lives. Most of us, personally and professionally, we have financial waste even if you don't recognize that it's there. For example, have you ever looked at your credit card statement and you just thought to yourself, wait a second, I don't remember signing up for this subscription? Most of us have experienced that at some point in time. This happens not only in our personal lives, but it happens in our organizations too. Except for when it happens in our organization, it happens on a much larger scale. Some of the most common financial leaks that we have is things just that simple. Unused software subscriptions. Think about it. If you look at your statements, are you still paying for that free trial that you signed up for 7 days or 30 days? Someone on your team, they had access to the card, they signed up for that subscription, it was going to change the workflow of the entire department, but it's being paid for and it's going unused. And there's chances that that's happening on multiple different levels. Even overpriced vendor contracts. All of the vendors that you pay for, that they do all the things that service your organization, that service your team or service your facilities. When was the last time that you tried to negotiate the rate that you have with all of those different vendors? See, every time that you sign up for something and you never touch it again, you have an opportunity for money just to be leaking without renegotiating even the vendor contracts that are ongoing. Another one in our office spaces are unnecessary supplies. We have a lot of things that are just on order, auto order. They're showing up, they're going on a shelf, they're in a back room somewhere. We have an overstock of things that we really don't need. And it may seem simple, but every one of those orders, every one of those supplies that are sitting are just simply wasting us money. We have financial waste or financial leaks in our organization. Another big leak or a waste that we have is time. We have time waste. That's the meeting that should have been an email. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. You've had those meetings, you've sat there for hours on end, and you're thinking to yourself, and everyone else in the room knows it, this could have been an email. You know the saying, you've heard this, that time is money. And the reason that that saying has stood the test of time is simply because it's true. Did you know that the average employee spends 31 hours per month in an unproductive meeting? That's nearly a full work week wasted. Time simply washed down the drain. And most of this knows that this happens, but we just continue to do it anyway. We have lots of time wasters in our day-to-day, in our organizations. We have slow decision-making processes. You ever tried to make a decision and it felt like you had to get 20 layers deep just to get an approval for a $20 purchase? You have to go through all of these layers and all of these people. You have to send an email. You have to schedule a meeting. You have to do a check-in just for a decision-making process. And it holds up progress. You're not making any time up because you're losing it because you don't have a good organizational structure. There's just too many layers and you're just wasting time. Or something like repetitive administrative tasks, things that could be done automatically, things that could have been put on a system, that they could have been done a better way, but we just haven't tightened up the way that we run our organization, and it causes time to be wasted. And I think we need to learn how to organize in such a way that we maximize the time that we have. Shopify did this a few years back. Back in 2023, they were in the news for canceling all of their reoccurring meetings with anything that had more than 3 people involved. They just said, we're giving everyone back their time. They literally had a bot go into all the calendars for the company and delete all of the appointments for all of the meetings. People who had scheduled their appointments could not even keep them because they had AI go in and completely erase them. See, they restricted the whole process for meetings. They restructured what they were going to do with their time. Now, like most reactions to change, opinions were divided on it, but the goal is so that they could stop wasting time. It was simply an attempt to say, we're not going to waste time in this organization by sitting around in meetings that could have been an email. We're going to structure our facilities. We're going to structure our work order. We're going to structure the way that we perform our task in such a way that we're going to maximize our time. So the question for you is, how much time do you think that your organization is wasting? Number 3, I would say, is personnel waste. We have too many cooks in the kitchen. We have too many people, too many hands are on things. One study found that wasted time and inefficiency cost businesses up to 40% of their payroll. In other words, we have so many people that we are overspending on tasks that could have been done maybe by fewer people. And this happens when employees are underutilized. So that's, again, too many hands and not enough work. In other words, we have hired multiple people to do things that if we maximize the work and the effort of the employees that we have, we would not need so many people working on this project. Or some employees would say our roles are just unclear. We've got everyone doing a little bit of everything, but no one is particularly owning any one specific thing that needs to be done. Or this is a big one in our organizations today, high turnover. The hiring and the training process is expensive. So I think you should invest in retention. I say this a lot during our podcast conversations that by investing in your people and by equipping them and training them and resourcing them, this is the most important investment that you can make. And I would love to be a resource to invest in your team. This is what I do, and it's worth it. Listen to this. I want to prove it. Companies who invest in their team have a 218% higher income rate per employee than companies without any trainings. 92% of employees think that workplace training impacts their job engagement in a positive way. So if I can throw a commercial to you, I'm just one email away from investing in your team. Number 4, I would say a big area of waste is property waste. I call it the land of forgotten office equipment. Think about it. If you have outdated office equipment in a storage room somewhere, collecting dust, that's waste. I know many organizations that has equipment piled up. If you're paying to rent storage space for all of these things that you don't need, that again is waste. Now, this has become much more apparent and much more common after COVID. There are so many properties that are sitting vacant. There's offices that are unused, and that's all waste. Money going down the drain. See, one consulting firm specifically, they offloaded some of their unused office space. They said, we're not going to use this. We're not bringing everyone back to the office, and we don't need all of this space. And by simply offloading some of the unused office space, they saved $2 million annually. And this may be something that you need to consider right now in your organization to trim the waste. Property waste is apparent, especially today, as we have this work from home culture, as we have this flex work schedules. It may just be that you don't need all of the properties that you're holding on to. The reality is, it does not matter if the waste is finances, if it's time, if it's personnel, or if it's property. Waste is waste, and money is money. So I want to move us from, well, I think we're wasting money, to wow, we just saved thousands or millions of dollars. So I want to go over what I would call a DOGE game plan. A few things that you can apply into your organization, a process of which you can put a plan in place to spot and eliminate waste that you have either professionally or even personally. So number 1, here's what you need to do is you need to identify areas of waste. You have to be able to see it and to clarify the areas of waste that you have in your organization or in your life. Start by looking at the 4 key areas that we just talked about. Your finances, see what you're missing, see what's leaking there. Your time, personnel, and the property. You may find even other areas as you start digging in, and you may go, this needs attention too. But generally, these are the 4 best places that you can start in order to spot the waste that you have. Number 2, I would say, is you need to create an efficiency task force. Get yourself an efficiency task force. There are 2 approaches here. You could bring in a third party, like find your own Elon, and you can have them help you sort through all of your departments. They can help you go in professionally, dig in. They know what they're looking for. They do this all the time. They're experts in this area and just help you uncover all of the waste. Or you can work through it internally with those who are on the inside of your organization. And I think this works as well too. If you choose to work with a team inside of your organization, I just think that you need to make sure that they are neutral in their cost cutting. So here's something to be aware of. If they're invested in a project or a property, they may not be ready to achieve your goal. They may not be so excited to cut the waste. So you just need to make sure that those that are involved in cutting waste will actually get in there and help you trim the fat. Just be aware, because most people, they're not excited about cutting waste. They're just not. Most employees, especially when it's not specifically their money coming out of their pocket, well, they enjoy the ability to spend without worrying so much about the impact. And that's why this is really important for you as the leader, the manager, or even the owner, that you oversee something like this, because they're not going to take as much ownership in this area as you are. So in order to, encourage this process, you need to make it more enjoyable or even make it fun. So, for example, you could create an efficiency challenge where you just give teams maybe an opportunity to compete to find the most savings maybe in their department. And then you could reward them for their help in saving money and cutting the waste. Now, by reward, listen, I don't mean a pizza party. They don't want another pizza party. Take the savings that you have and pay it forward with cash. Reward them. Take the savings, put it back into what matters, and that is people. People matter more than anything. Then number 3, I would say you need to audit like Elon. We can learn a lot here. This is where things actually start to get real, because as you dig in and you're looking for all the waste, you've got your team invested, then you begin the audit process. You have to narrow your focus in on these areas that you want to audit. You get your team prepared, and then you begin the work. The first thing to do when you begin is to get all of your data together. You can check expense reports or time tracking, project logs, just any piece of information that could lead you to potential waste. Now, as we talk about this, I know what you're thinking. This is time consuming and it can be painful. But I promise you that the more data that you can collect, taking the time to sort through all of this information is going to help you, because it makes it even more clear. The more data you have, the clearer the picture becomes. And there's a high probability that the more you begin to uncover and the clearer that picture becomes, the more trends that you're going to see that are running through every department, you're going to find waste. And then just look for any key areas where spending maybe is higher than expected. So as you're digging through all of this information, and as you're looking through all the data that you've collected, you may find there's some specific areas where you're just exceeding the budget, or even that time is being wasted, that deadlines are being missed. And you can take all of this information that you collect, the data, and then make use of technology. See, because of the technology we have today, it's easier than ever to make all of the data collected just work for you. There's tons of AI tools that can sift through all of the data to compare the trends that you find. It'll help you spot waste even that may not be obvious at first glance. See, the goal here is to take the data and turn it into a clear plan of action. So you've got everyone on board, you've got a zero focus on the areas in which you want to audit, and then you start collecting your data. And then number 4, you begin making cuts that matter. Make the cuts that matter. You need to prioritize. We're not cutting just to cut, but we're being intentional here. When you start making cuts, just remember that not all spending is bad. We can get caught up in saving the money that we begin slashing the budget. We begin taking funds or resources away that are actually needed and actually matter. Prioritize where you reduce spending without sacrificing quality and value. Focus your cuts on the expenses that aren't adding value or enough value to justify the cost. Be careful and intentional about where you make these cuts. And you can start with quick wins. This is a good one. See, this could be small things like those unnecessary subscriptions or renegotiating those vendor contracts we talked about. See, these small wins actually give you the momentum that you need to tackle the larger or more complicated results, and getting those cuts in there. This is the snowball effect. Start small, and then eventually, as you become more more lean and cutting the fat, the easier it gets as you go through every single department. You also need to make sure that you're prepared to track the impact that these cuts have on your organization. So as you're trimming the fat, you need to know what impact it's having. You're going to want to evaluate if the result of that cut is positive or if it's negative, and then you can respond accordingly. Now, I understand that as we have this conversation, many of you right now are going, this sounds like so much work, and I'm not even sure if it's worth the hassle. But the statistics don't lie. Remember, we said on average, businesses waste how much? Up to 30% of their operating budget on waste. 30% just going down the drain. But just a 3% reduction in waste, it can actually increase profits to 40%. Because every $1 invested in waste reduction can save $14 in operating cost. It is worth it. And if you're on the fence, ask Ford if it was worth it to them. Back in the early 2000s, you can probably remember this, that Ford realized it had way too many car models. They were spending unnecessarily millions of dollars on parts to build low-selling vehicles. They were making a big investment in vehicles that did not have the return. So in order to cut the fat, in order to streamline the process, they eliminated some of those models. They trimmed the fat, got rid of some of the underperforming models, and then they began to make more money. Even though they had to go in, they had to reevaluate, they had to take all the data, they had to go in and reorganize and restructure and work with all their vendors and all the different things that it took. Come on, it was a lot of work, but it was worth it because they saved a lot of money. So here's what I want us to do. I want us to get started. I want us to get your business lean and mean. And I want to give you a quick start guide so that you can apply all of this week. We've talked about why we need to do it. We've talked about areas that we need to focus on. And so now I want to just equip you with a game plan. And don't forget, this can be done in your organization, and it can also be done in your personal life. And number one, here's where you start. Just do a mini audit. Start small, just a mini audit just to get the ball rolling. I would say you could set aside 2 hours. Take 2 hours, put it on the calendar on this day at this time, and then gather your team to just take a close look at all of your expenses. You can do this in your organization. You can do this with your spouse if it's in a family setting. Then begin to dig into all of that data, okay? All the stuff that we're collecting so that we can get the information. This could be bank statements for you. You can take a look at those software subscriptions we talked about, those vendor contracts, operational cost. You can look for any and all unnecessary spending. Just look for the fat. What are we spending money on that is unnecessary? And then by including those key leaders, I believe that they will help you find spending that you probably did not even know existed, because they're working in areas, spending money, they're seeing the day-to-day at a closer angle, they're closer to the work every single day than potentially you may be, so they can help you uncover some of the waste that you may have not noticed on your own. Number two, after you've taken a look at, you need to cut the fat. Just cut the fat. If you find an expense that falls into the waste category, don't wait, cut it today. Some expenses may seem minor. They may not seem like that big of a deal, but together, all of these add up to significant savings. And the faster you cut the fat, the quicker you can see the results. We talked about one of those time wasters was making decisions and it getting through all of the different layers. But as soon as you see it, as soon as you notice it, go ahead, trim the fat. Number three is set an efficiency goal. Challenge yourself and challenge your team. I think you should give a measurable target, something that we are all shooting for. Because when you say something like, oh, we're just going to trim the waste, we have to define the waste. You got to take that data, you got to bring it together, you got to serve it to your team, and then give them a goal. Something like maybe reduce expenses by 5% over the next quarter. You see, a clear goal keeps everyone focused and motivated while making sure that these cuts are made strategically. And if you encourage creativity, this will help you too. You can encourage creative problem solving because savings don't just come from cutting cost, but they can come from improving processes and finding more cost-effective solutions. So when you set an efficiency goal and you actually equip and empower your team, well, it may not be a subscription, it may not be a vendor, it may just simply be a process in which something is done that could be done better. Time saving, it could be personnel saving. So here's what happens. When you equip them and you encourage them to get creative, they can bring solutions to you that you didn't even have to think of on your own. And if you want your team to buy into this, if you want them to be a part of this DOGE process, I want you to, number 4, reward your employees for finding savings. You need them to buy in. And listen, your team will be happy to trim the fat if they know they're going to get a piece of the pie. You have to offer them incentives like a bonus, money, or even extra time off. See, when people have a personal stake in reducing waste, they'll be more likely to participate and then offer the solutions. And plus, when you share the benefits of the cost and all the savings that you just have with your team, it helps build morale and a stronger culture and, of course, financial responsibility. Because as they spend, as they purchase, as they produce, they know that the lack of waste is going to increase their bottom line because the entire organization is sharing in this together. And then number 5, commit to ongoing reviews. Look, at this point, you've already done the hard work. You've already invested the time. You've collected all of the information. You've already begun to cut the fat. And by this point, you're seeing the benefit. So just understand that this isn't just a one and done. It's not just a one-time thing. This should be an ongoing process. So you could set up a quarterly review. Just make sure that things are staying lean and waste hasn't happened again. Because the reality is this, that as your company continues to grow, well, your expenses are going to grow. As your company operations become more complicated, well, so do all the expenses that come along with it. But regular check-ins just help you to catch any unnecessary cost before they become a burden on your organization. So set a schedule, set a process in which, just like any other important thing that happens in your organization, that this is a quarterly review where you just take a time, you take a moment to go in and look for the waste, start the audit all over again so that you can ensure that you're operating lean and mean. Now, DOGE may be focused on government waste, but you can take that same mindset, apply it to your business, your department, or even your personal budget. You can take all of this information and you can begin working this and experiencing the benefits today. So this is my challenge for you. I want you to pick at least one area in your organization to audit this week. That may be your budget. It may be your team's workflow. It could be your meeting schedules. Maybe you need to cut some meetings out. But just find at least one way this week that you can begin to cut waste in your life or in your organization. And then I want you to let me know what you found. I would love to hear some success stories from your very own DOGE audit. And I want to say thank you for joining me for the Mind Your Business podcast. As always, if you found this helpful, just like, subscribe, share this with a friend, leave a review, because this helps us add value to as many people as possible. And until next time, go and mind your business.